This one works. Okay. Woo. We all make mistakes. That's why erasers were made. In 1736, English engineer Edward Narn watched as South American native Indians took a certain tree resin to make bouncing balls. He took this tree resin back home, and sooner or later, the Europeans found that I can rub out lead pencil marks. In 1770, Edward Narn was reported to have developed the first widely marketed rubber eraser for an inventions competition. The erasers we use today are made out of synthetic rubber and are very good quality and very good and very useful. But I bet you didn't know that it actually has some pretty big negatives. One being it has vinyl or PVC, and two being it has vegetable oil. Now, to start off, what's so bad about vinyl or PVC? Well, according to the Center of Health, Environment, and Justice, they say, and I quote, "It's the most toxic plastic for children's health and the environment." Yeah, so not too great. According to palmoilinvestigations.com, vegetable oil is basically the same thing as palm oil. And if you haven't been living under a rock, you would know that Green School is very, and I mean very, against conflict palm oil. If you unfortunately have been living under a rock, then, well, let me explain. BBC News says palm oil production is said to have been responsible for more than 8% of the world's deforestation between 1990 and 2008. The EPA says scientific research and experience with actual spills have shown that spills of vegetable oils can kill or injure fish, birds, mammals, and other species by oxygen depletion. When an animal is coated by vegetable oil, they can die of hypothermia or starvation. Spills of vegetable oil have devastating impacts on the aquatic environment. On the 10th of May, John Hardy, my father, and I traveled to Banyuwangi, Java, for rubber tree research and collecting. Rubber tree research and collecting. Sorry, I'm forgetting. I'm too nervous. Sorry. On the 10th of May, John Hardy, my father, and I traveled to Banyuwangi, Java, for rubber tree research and collecting. Oh my God, I'm totally forgetting. I don't know why, I'm just forgetting. Oh my God, okay, yeah, that's right. Arriving at the rubber plantation, we were instructed to wake up at 3 a.m. We had to wake up at this time because it was when the rubber tree sweats the most and is easiest to produce. We also had to wake up at this time because it gives the rubber tree tappers enough time for this whole process, because it is a long process. Along the way, I picked up these. Now my two friends are going to pass them throughout the audience, the rubber tree seeds. You can start tapping rubber when a tree is 7 years old up to 40 years old. Now some of you will get them and most of you won't. Now for those who have them, I want you to just, wait, can I get one?
We need one this way.
All right, what I want you to do, okay, cool. Okay, now if you have one, you can observe it and look at the really cool texture. But what I want you to do, put it on the ground and break it. Now pick it up, take off the excess, and you'll feel a furry textured thing. Now rip that open. After that's done, rip the furry textured seed open. If you can, well, that's the core, or the mother, of the rubber tree seed. Now, rubber tree tappers wake up at 3 a.m., tap rubber for 5 hours, and believe it or not, rubber tappers tap at least 250 trees a day. That's a lot of tapping. Now, after the tapping is done, the rubber tappers go home for 2 hours and rest while the rubber is making its way to fill up the cup. After the 2 hours are done and the cups are full, the rubber tappers go out throughout the forest and collect them and put it into their two big metal containers and bring it to the factory. The factory workers then put it into several huge containers and mix it with formic acid. The formic acid makes it into kind of a jello-y type thing, like this. These jello-y things are then rolled out and pressed through this machine. And then after it's all flat and all the liquid is out, they go into smoke rooms. After 6 days, the smoking is done. They take it out, stamp on the company's name and texture, and put it into one huge cube for shipment. Now, in the whole entire world, for the biggest project of the entire year, why did I choose erasers? Well, let me explain. One night, I was doing homework when I realized I had a mistake on my sheet. So I walked over to my bag, got my pencil case out, actually searched for an eraser, and I didn't have one. In the corner of my eye, I noticed my flip-flop, and that I had tearing on it. So I picked it up and tore it off. And I wondered, would this work as an eraser? And it did. Why did I ruin a perfectly good flip-flop for this? If you know me, you know that I have very little patience. Back in January, as a preparation for Quest, as a preparation for Quest, we had Mini Quest. My idea for that was, in fact, erasers. But instead of using natural rubber, I used flip-flops. Anyways, so when our class visited John Hardy, I told him how I'd like to continue this idea for Big Quest. He went on to tell me that if I were to make this, it would basically just be like taking a flip-flop, blending it up, and throwing it back out. So he had a point. He then brought me the idea of natural rubber, and that I should create an eraser that is made out of natural rubber, and that is indeed biodegradable, compostable, and natural. So I pursued this idea and made it happen, and it turned into this. Now this is then cut up, and it actually works pretty well as an eraser. Now, why are my erasers better than the erasers we use today? Well, first off, my erasers don't include vinyl or PVC and don't have vegetable oil. Also, according to hygienic.com, natural rubber latex, which is what I collected, is the most biodegradable and eco-friendly liquid latex that is extracted from the rubber tree, or the Hevea brasiliensis. Hard word. The rubber latex is extracted from a tree that does not get damaged and is very useful to the environment and very useful to ourselves. Now, as I said before, we all make mistakes. One of the biggest mistakes made in the eraser industry was walking away from a naturally created eraser and towards the chemical eraser. I want to erase that mistake with my all-natural eraser. Thank you. I forgot so much.
Great.
I got way too nervous. I got way too nervous.